Hi, hello, and welcome to this live stream video with China Teacher Brand and Walkabout Rojo. Mr. Rojo, welcome to the show. It's a great pleasure to have you here. How are you
Yeah,
tonight?
very good, thank you, Mr. Rojo. That's the first time anyone's ever called me that. But okay, Rojo was a nickname that I was given when I was a little boy because I have red hair, but I also have a lot of Hispanic blood in me. I'm like, so being Hispanic but a ginger, the family and my friends call me Rojo affectionately. So I kind of stuck with it.
All right. Okay. Well, some of the people are already watching. We have Germano Cinephile El Rojo, the Red. Welcome to the show, guys.
Great.
Um, all right. Let me get some information out. First of all, we are going to be talking about the floods here in China. Is something that quite a few people have been asking me personally to do, and I figured that since you started a new channel, for those of you
Mm.
guys who are watching, Paul has a new channel. What's the name? Rojo
It's called Rojo Reads the News. Yeah, it's a
Rojo
simple.
reads the news.
Yeah, it's a simple kind of a daily news kind of thing. I just sit at my desk. I got the idea from some students of mine who wanted to learn more about current events, but they also wanted to listen to me read so that they can emulate what I read and also read along and get some vocabulary. I said, what a great idea. And so that's kind of how it was born. And the stories that I read are mostly about China, but they're also about Asia in general, foreign trade, business, ESL, movie news, the things that interest me. But lately, it's been mostly about China and
Hmm.
all the events that are happening. It's not the stuff that you see in the news back home. This is stuff that's mostly disseminated within China itself. So there are a lot more human interest type stories and a lot of business type stories because I'm a businessman, so I like that stuff.
Sure. Let me fire up the logo right there.
Okay. Yep.
RRTN. Yeah, Rojo reads
Yep.
the news. So you guys see, if you want to follow what Paul Walkabout Rojo is doing on his channel, make sure to go there. I will make sure to leave the link in the description down below. I
Mm.
did not have time. Both of us basically just walked home 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, that's right. That's still a little out of breath, a little sweaty.
As in, like, let me get some water and then we start the live stream.
Yeah. I'm I'm
The
I'm
live,
drinking milk tonight. So
okay, the life of a YouTuber in China, isn't it?
that's right.
All right, cool. So, as we said, we want to talk about two things. We want to talk about the floods in China and also some of the information that we have related to the reopening of several states in America in the middle of the COVID-19 situation. So, we want
Mm.
to also tie this up to, as you saw in the thumbnails, perhaps, uh, we wanted to tie this up to the need to listen to the scientific community and how this probably these two things could be connected by that very simple link.
Mm.
We want to go around this topic and end up with global warming. So yeah, without further ado, let us start talking then about the floods. Paul, what do you know about the floods? What information have you received about the floods? What can you share with us in terms of information that you've seen?
Well, most of the floods that I've seen so far as the news goes, have been in Guizhou and Guangxi. Those a little bit in western Hunan province and also Sichuan province. They seem to be the areas hardest hit. That's kind of southwestern China, and these are generally the less affluent areas of China with less infrastructure and to to support the efforts that are the relief efforts that are going on there. And so there's an awful lot of attention being done. But here's the thing: this year it's worse than ever. Every
Mm,
year this happens. Every year these areas get some kind of flooding. It's the rainy season, it's the flood season right now, even here in Guangdong. But this year is substantially worse, and to compound it with the COVID-19 stuff that is still going on here in China, by the way. A lot of people say China's back to normal. It's not. They're still fighting, they're still on high alert for COVID-19, and there are new cases found every day in almost every province, asymptomatic, and it's reported on every day. So everywhere you go, you still wear a mask. Everywhere you go, you still get your temperature taken, and that
Mhm.
includes these poor provinces that are now, unfortunately, getting hit really hard with these once in 100-year flood events. And it's sad to say. It's sad to see, and it's not just the water; it's the mudslides that are happening.
Mhm.
They're just devastating to watch on when you watch them on TV.
Yeah, some of the, let me see if I can pull some of the pictures that we've
Yeah.
got here to illustrate what we're talking about. You probably have seen this as well, I suppose.
Mm.
I mean, I'm talking about the people who, I took this ones from um, let me see if I can pull it up. This is okay, no, it shouldn't go there. This should be an overlay. Okay, sorry. um some of the pictures that we're seeing are just absolutely uh, tremendous damage, an enormous amount of damage. This is a picture from a video from Al Jazeera. This is just the kind of landslides that you see coming from the top of the mountains and just completely destroying towns and villages completely. I mean, there's just literally um, nothing left standing, which is
Mhm.
extremely sad situation. I remember the first thing that I heard was some issues with the dam, the Three Gorges Dam.
Mm.
There were some reports that the dam had some damage, and there were some GPS pictures that were, I don't know, contested. What do you know about that?
Well, this is my take on it. Nobody really knows for sure what it
Hmm.
is. We can just make conjectures based on what we've seen and the reports that we've seen. And there's two different sides to this, depending on the Chinese local media and the Western media, of course. But they've been talking about the Three Gorges Dam and some of the so-called shabby building quality, some of the cut corners that were happening. They've been talking about that for decades since it very first started the construction of the Three Gorges Dam. And I don't know if that's right or wrong. I'm not an engineer in that sense. I am a civil engineer, but I don't know anything about the building of dams, and that's a completely different field for me. But this has been reported on continuously. Nothing has happened yet, thank God. And it very well be that nothing will happen. But those satellite images that you're talking about are what a lot of these news media sources are using as evidence that the dam is shifting or moving. Uh, is you just looking down, you can see that it was once a solid line and now it's a little bit of curve. Now the Chinese
Hmm.
media is saying that that is normal, that there is a small little shift, but it's very minute. And what you're seeing is a distorted satellite image, and they're saying
Hmm.
that everything is fine. And from what I can gather, there's just one engineer out there that has been all over the news saying it's going to fail, it's going to fail, it's cutting corners.
Yeah.
Yet they've got another 100 that say everything is fine. So what's going to happen? No one really knows. All they can do is guess at this point. Yeah, that's my take on it.
I mean, well, to kind of like bring together the two things that we were saying, this is a kind of like a very recurrent event, this floods, and this is one of the
Yeah,
reasons why this dam was actually built to be
yeah,
able to regulate the flow of water that's actually coming down from this
yeah.
mountain.
And it's
From
just one dam. There are hundreds of dams
Yep,
all over southern China.
and
We've got a long history of building dams in China. This is part of what they do.
I don't know, here in Guangdong, you see reservoirs every
Mm.
10-20 kilometers
Yeah.
because they do have a lot of water in, particularly here in this subtropical area. And Guangxi is not too far up. So, yeah, the reservoirs are, I read that there's about 300 reservoirs in that area. The problem with that is that the levels are reaching um, capacity, or they are surpassing like the safety level capacity, and
Mhm.
they are forced to drain some of this water to release pressure and to, well, release the level so it doesn't overflow or something like that. And a lot of people, what I've read, what I've seen is that a lot of people kind of like point fingers, like, oh, you see, they're having to
Yeah.
release water. Like what else do you expect them to do?
Right. I mean, they get a ton of rain. I mean, and for the most part, dams are, they're not just for irrigation, and drinking water, but they are flood control basins that these
Hmm.
are, and they're built to protect people. And for the most part, they do an excellent job of that. This is a once in 100-year, rain event that they're getting. It's unfortunate that if they reach capacity, they're going to overflow. This is not anyone's fault for ill preparing for this kind of event. This is just a natural disaster that's occurring, and they're going to have to deal with it as it goes. This is crisis management that they're in right now.
Yeah. Let me pull up a picture and a couple of messages. There's a picture just to show you, guys, the kind of water levels that we're looking at. This is, again, something from Al Jazeera. This is, I don't know, 5 feet of water, 4 or 5 feet of water. Um, an area that was hit very, very badly is an area that I know you know. I remember during Chinese New Year we were talking about maybe going there to Yangshuo.
Mm.
Did you end up going in
I
February?
did. I was there. I made a video series. It was right. I was literally in Yangshuo walking through the town as they were closing up the town because of the COVID-19 virus. I stayed there
Yeah,
for
that's.
I stayed there for 2 days. It was completely empty. The Lee River was very, very low because this was still the dry season,
Mhm.
and an incredible experience. It was boring because there's nothing to do. No restaurants were open. There was only one or two hotels that were open. None of it. We couldn't go hiking. All the villages were closed. They had guys out there with like knives and machetes, keeping you say don't come in. Right. So we drove back to Guangdong, stopping in Huangyao, which is an ancient town in Guangxi, which we were the only ones there. The villagers were so welcoming and nice to us. We said, "Look, we have no place to go." They allowed it. They allowed us to stay, come in, walk around. They talked to us. There's only one little tiny family restaurant open, and I made another couple of video series. But it's the only time you will see West Street, Yangshuo, Huangyao, ancient town, completely void of life and people. It was eerie. And remember, this is the very first inklings of the country
The,
shutting down.
yeah,
So it was so surreal, the experience. But at that time, there was no rain. It was
I
everything
remember
was super
watching.
low, man.
I remember watching the video, and I'm like, that's because I've been there. I don't know, 4 or 5 times. I've been
Yeah,
twice with my parents and a couple of times with friends. I absolutely love Yangshuo, and it's like
yeah.
400 kilometers from here. It's a
Hmm.
couple of hours drive. I love going there, and
Me
and
too.
watching your video, I was like, wow, it's just nobody around. That was really, really a unique experience, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah. It was my second time in Yangshuo, and I
Hmm.
had all the plans of doing, all the hiking and doing all the nightlife type stuff too. And it was quite surprising what happened. But and then coming back into Guangdong, we were literally coming back into Guangdong as they were closing the highway behind us, and closing off the towns behind us.
Go, go,
So
go.
we literally got back into Zhongshan, right and as soon as I got back, like 5 minutes later, that's when they locked me down here at the university and said, "Don't
Mm,
leave." I
that's
didn't leave for the next 2-3 months.
that's the next chapter of your channel. Okay, let me
Yeah,
pull
yeah.
some messages here. We got here Zach. Yo, hello Zach. How you doing? Thank you for showing up.
Hey, Zach.
We got Jamaica Funk. Jamaica
Another great
Funk.
YouTuber here in China. Yes.
Yes, awesome.
Mhm.
Heard some of that flooding footage is old, so I don't know what's real or not. Yeah, mm, yeah. I mean, it's
It's
still
definitely real.
standing. Oh, it might be real, but the dam's real. We've
Yeah.
got Leo Lee, fake news, and the dam is very solitary.
I think they made
Mm,
solid.
yeah, solid. I have some Chinese. How's your Chinese reading? Can you
It's
pull
getting
some?
better, but I saw that. I don't know what that says, unfortunately. The complex
Okay.
characters are still really difficult for my dyslexic mind. Yeah.
Okay, so we're not gonna be able to pull the Chinese ones. Jamaica says again. They said the Google
I
Map
got this.
images are
Yeah.
distorted.
Yeah.
Um, here's the cat saying, "Hi, I'm back. Good vibes, Malcolm. My, hola. How's your Spanish?"
My Spanish, it's rusty, but you know,
Like over
yo
here.
sé hablar
Hey,
español y poco.
un poco. Hey, I want to show you
Uh,
guys. This is the coolest thing in the world. This is a cap from the Dongguan Dragons. Hey, let me put
is
it over
that
here.
the baseball team?
Yeah, it's a baseball team.
Nice.
It's a little league team here in Dongguan, sponsored by the MLB.
No
And
kidding.
we were shooting the podcast with them just the last couple of days. So cool.
Wow.
So they were nice enough to give me this cap. So
I'm dying to go to a baseball game. There's a national baseball association here in China now. There's like
yeah,
four or
yeah, yeah.
five teams nationally. In Guangzhou, there's an actual team. They had a season, then almost like 30 games or something like that, but I couldn't figure out where they were playing. Otherwise, I would have gone to watch it because I love baseball and I
We're
can't
we're
watch my Dodgers.
segueing into other
Yeah, I
things,
don't know
but I
how we're
have to
doing this.
say
Yeah.
this. Xi Jinping actually said some time ago that he wants China to be a superpower in terms of baseball, and
He
everybody was
did.
like,
He said that. I didn't
"What?"
know.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, yeah. You were like, "What? Why baseball?" And well, nobody really understands why, but you can actually see the efforts and the work that is being done to promote youngsters and to send them to the MLB Academy around China and to promote it to well Major League Baseball in the U.S. And they are trying to replicate the NBA model, so to speak. So it's really cool. You gotta guys gotta keep an eye on that interview. It's gonna come in a few weeks. You know how that goes, right? It's a little bit late.
Yeah, I understand.
You shoot it and it comes
You're
down like a
talking about
month
your
later.
Yeah, you're talking about your podcast, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah,
Of
yeah.
Course China,
Of
right?
course,
Yeah.
China.
So, if
All
you
right, let
haven't
me
seen that,
see.
guys, go see that channel. It's got some good stuff on it.
Okay, we've got Arthur LC. This guy is awesome. He's always supporting my channel. Hi, just woke up to say hi. RJ, good evening, guys.
Mm.
Good to see you two doing this together. Thank you, RJ.
Yeah. By the way, it's
I,
good to be back with you. By the way, Fernando, it's good to do another
yeah,
collab like this. Yeah.
yeah. This is great. Let's see. Zach says Chinese say that people are working hard to protect the dam, and even military works on it. Yeah, I mean, they should do everything they can to protect everything that goes downstream from the dam.
Yeah, and Zach, I want to piggyback on that. You're absolutely right. A lot of these situations that they're talking about, other dams failing in other countries such as Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan and places like this, there's so many other issues having to deal with that. And one of the biggest reasons is recurring maintenance. If a
Mm,
country does not do recurring maintenance on any kind of infrastructure project or even just a house, it's going to fall apart, regardless of how well it's built to begin with. So you have to do annual budgets and you have to do this recurring maintenance program. If you don't do that, they're going to fail. And
mm,
that is, you have to look at everything. So if a dam was built by some 10, 15 years ago, that doesn't necessarily mean it's their fault that it's failing. You have to do recurring maintenance. And
hmm.
if you don't, it's going to fail.
Yeah. Okay, I have to pull this one before we go on with our topic. Jamaica, are you sure that's not a MAGA hat? No, it's not
No,
a
it's not a
MAGA
MAGA
hat.
hat. I
I'm
have
sure
a
it's made in
MAGA hat.
China.
Yes, I have a MAGA hat right over there. It was a gift from a student, but it was kind of like a gag gift because they know that I'm not a big Trump
Uh,
fan. So
Same thing. Arthur picked up on the joke. Looks like a MAGA hat.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So let us report on some of the things that I know that I would like to report. This is obviously
Mm.
from Chinese news, so we know that there's always like two sides of the story. It says here that the three gorges discharge water near the Yichang city,
Yeah.
and the idea was to reduce the reservoir's water level from 147.51 meters to 145 meters depth at
Mm.
that point. So it's basically a safety measure.
Mm.
A lot of people are posting pictures and saying like, "Oh, look, uh, they're having to do that." Yes, you're right. They're having to do that.
Yeah, this is a
And
catastrophic event that's going on, and those dams are there, and for the most part, they protect people and they
mhm,
protect property. But when you have an event like this happen, it's going above and beyond what the capacity is. There's nothing that we can do about it. But for the most part, you can't imagine if those dams did not exist, what would be occurring in these areas right now. It would be even more devastating.
Mm. All right. So why don't we talk a little bit about what's happening with the reopening of the states? Because I wanted to talk more about the third
Mm,
part of our show. That's what I wanted to spend a little bit more time.
I
Um,
agree.
so the whole reopening of states, what's happening, for example, in Florida. Um, they were slow to close down. They were quick to reopen, and now they're having huge spikes. I know that you have a different position, and I know that you are not in total agreement with lockdowns and shutting down the economy. What
That's
is
right.
your position? Why don't you share it with us?
It's a mixed position. Look, I'm with you. I am for looking at the science of everything
Hmm.
and saying, okay, what's the best way we can solve this virus issue? Okay, well, let's listen to the people who study viruses and do what they do. But then those people are not economists. And economies are extremely very important to the general health of a society, not just, physical health and prevention of virus transmissions, but the general health. If you have no money, then you don't get health care. And, the overall aggregate health of a society will be in decline. So politicians, unfortunately, have to weigh these decisions. These are very difficult decisions to make. I don't envy them for being in these positions. They're much smarter people than me, usually, mostly, not always, right? So they have to make a decision from all their advisors, from the scientists who are telling them this and that, and then from the economists that tell them from this and that. And these are two very conflicting things going on. What I've seen in China is that you can do both. I mean, initially they shut everything down and they starve the beast, if you will. But then as they learned more about the virus, they realized, okay, we need to open up. We need to get the economy going now because velocity of capital is the health of a society. So
Hmm.
that started happening, but we still have these measures in place, these safety measures in place, such as wearing masks, uh, temperature checks. If your temperature is over a certain amount, you go get tested. Massive amounts of testing, massive amounts of PPE, social distancing. Everywhere restaurants you go to, the tables are further apart. Can't get into a mall unless you wear a mask. That's not happening in these states that are opening up soon. So they're not taking the advice of the scientists. They are solely looking at the economic part of it. And that's the problem that I have with it. I think that you can do both if you do things from a safety standpoint. And I don't see that happening in most states. There are some states that are. That's the other thing about America. You have to understand it's essentially like 50 different countries. Right, each
Yes.
country has its own leader, its own military, its own laws, and then you have the federal government that blankets over it. But there has been a complete lack of leadership from the blanket over it, from the federal government. It's
Hmm.
been states, you're on your own, you do your thing. And some states will do X, and some states will do Y, and some states will do nothing. And then you have, the nature of America is people cross borders, and you have this patchwork of rules and regulations that nobody fully understands. And then PPEs and wearing this stuff becomes politicized. If you wear a mask, then you are for Democrats and you're anti-Trump. If you don't wear a mask, then you're sticking it to the liberals or something like that. And that has been a terrible thing for my country for me
I,
to
I
witness from afar, and then for them to go through it, and it's contributing to the problem.
I think that there's different nodes or different nuclei of problems. I think that
Yeah.
one of the first problems has to do with the fact that yes, you're talking about 50 different states, 50 different countries, so to speak. And I made a video about it where I talked about if everybody goes on lockdown at the same time, then you're gonna come out of it at a certain time. But if you go into lockdown now and then the next state or the neighboring state goes into lockdown 3 weeks later, and then the next one just a week later, you
Mm,
this one's gonna have to stay locked down a lot longer until
mm,
everybody's actually in. So that's one of the things that I saw, and I'm like, and there's nothing they can do because, as you said, they're all individual states making their own decisions. But had everybody jumped in at the same time, you're looking at, okay, we're shutting down for a month, let's say. But
Um,
then again, that's
mm.
that's that's just dreaming, right? Because it wouldn't be possible, but ideally that's what would have happened. And
It
the
would be
other,
possible. They just didn't do it.
yeah, yeah,
They
you're
could do
right.
it if they want to, but they decided not to do it. There's no unifying leadership at the top to say we need to do this. It's been you guys do your own thing.
Yeah.
You're on your
and
own.
and
Figure it out.
and the other thing is that you extrapolate that to the globe, to the rest of the world, and now everybody's like, okay, we're ready to open our borders, but we're waiting on you guys over there who started, like, who haven't figured it out yet. So it's slowing everybody else's process of reopening. um so I feel that it, it could have been managed in a very, very different way, in a way that um it would have been better for the country and better for everybody else. What do you feel about what's been taking place in terms of um the masks, for example, the defying the advice of admirals, doctors, scientists.
Well, that's the thing. There hasn't been a unifying force about the masks thing. I mean, you have these scientists that come on certain news channels and say, you got to wear masks, got to wear masks. And then it's countered by a different narrative coming from other doctors to say, no, they're not worth it. And so there's competing things going on here. And that's what I'm talking about when there's a complete lack of a unifying leadership at the top. If the federal government, if the Trump administration had just come out and said, everyone wear masks, we need to wear masks, look, we're wearing masks, then this would not be an issue. But instead, it's been left to the different national news medias that are competing for certain ideologies. And
Mm,
that has caused a lot of confusion, and it has basically segregated and tribalized the citizenry, basically in saying that, okay, if you wear a mask, then you're, forgive me, you are a wimp, and you're not strong enough, and it's not a
mm,
manly thing to do, or something like that. Where the other side is saying, well, if you don't wear a mask, um, or if you wear a mask, then you are helping out society. And it's so tribalized. I don't, what's the other word? Divided. Thank you. It's so divided in America. And I've said it from the very beginning, since day one of this COVID thing, is it's not just a lack of leadership, but it's also news media and people's reliance on nationalized, polarizing news media and taking sides. If you're a Fox News person, you just watch Fox, and that's your reality. If you're
mm.
a CNN, whatever, you just watch CNN, and that's your reality. When the real reality is somewhere in between, and that's why we're supposed to have leadership at the top, and we're not getting it. It's as an American, it's devastating for me to watch from afar.
um I wanted to talk, we don't need to go into details, but July 1st is a very significant date, because, well, why?
There's a couple of things with July 1st, right?
Mm.
So, are you talking about here in China?
No, I'm talking about America and the reopening, and basically, um, eh, the government had
Oh,
some leeway for people who had to pay rent and stuff like that. But for many states, July 1st is when people have to go back and pay rent. There was an interesting show by John Oliver last Sunday about evictions.
mm,
That is coming so hard
mm.
in the coming few days.
I have a lot of experience with this, so I won't talk about my personal experience. My personal thing, what's going on with me right now. We talked about that last night, but let me
Yeah,
talk in general terms.
yeah.
In my experience in real estate, before I was a teacher, I was also a hotel manager. I was a troop, but I was also heavily involved in real estate finance and real estate management. One of my gigs in the 2008-2009 um, financial crisis, when we were recovering from that, is I went to work for companies that were doing buying on the behalf of institutional investors. So the market went all the way down. it got cut in
Mm.
half, basically 50-60% losses in value. And who was buying these? They were being bought by institutional investors and the banks. So the same banks that were evicting people out of their
Where
homes, were failing to pay mortgage, they were turning around and buying them at trustee sales for all cash. And and if there were people living in there, renters, they would evict the renters and rehab the houses, and then ride and wave an appreciation for the next 10 years. We've seen that happen. They sold off everything. And now you're going to see evictions happen again. The value of homes is going to drop again. And who's going to buy it? The banks and institutional investors. So the cycle is going to continue. Only this time it's going to be much, much worse.
Yeah, because the alleviation has different kind of packages, and it's disguised as alleviation, but basically it's like you need to pay uh, the full amount a little bit later. So you don't need to pay now, so you can put food on the table, right? But you still owe the last 3 months. So
each state has their own rules with there's been a general moratorium on evictions, but as a landlord, you do not want to evict your tenants because
why
it's
wouldn't you?
extremely expensive. I mean, the court costs involved, it depends on which state. In my home state of California, it is extremely expensive, and there are loopholes within the legal system where it's a never-ending cycle of forced eviction, with the police, everything out there. You get them out of the house, but then the next day they just go right back in, and then you have to start the process all over again with the courts. And this could last 6 months to a year, and they're essentially living there for free. Evictions are extremely difficult to do and extremely costly for tenants. So as a landlord, your best option when you haven't been gotten paid for the last 3 months in your rent, and your renters are essentially living there for free, which is understandable. They haven't been allowed to work. They've shut down the economy. The government has shut down the economy. They don't have jobs. They don't have any income. So as a landlord, do you evict them because of that, or do you have to make a deal? Because you're still making your mortgage payments, and that gets, that trickles all the way up to Wall Street and the people who own the papers up there. You still have to make your payments, and the rental income is what you use to make those payments. If you don't have the rental income, you have a choice. You can either kick them out at great cost, turn the property, which can cost, not only time, the money, the lost income from having an empty unit for a month, plus new carpets, new whatever, paint, and plus the leasing fees to management and all that stuff. It's extremely expensive. And then you have to find someone who has the necessary credit, down payment, and everything to get into those properties, which nobody has right now. So the only thing that that landlords can do is to make concessions on their own. They're going to have to take a hit, and they're going to have to share in the burden that everyone is feeling right now. And that means either a complete, forgiveness of the 3 months, or making a deal saying, look, you have 6 months, pay me 50% of what you owe me. You have 6 months at 0% interest to pay it to me, and then we're good to go. Everyone's different. Some people,
that's ideal if you. That's sort of like how I felt with my training center. I mean, like, I can't make financial decisions based on my employees or on my expenses, or when I don't know when we're going to be out of this. When you have a debt, okay, this is when things shift back into gear. Then, okay, now I try devising a plan. But devising a plan when there's no need for things to restart, it's difficult.
Okay, I gotta stop you because the audio is going. I hear what you're saying, my friend. It looks like I lost you completely. Temporary issues, temporary issues. Yeah. But you're right. It has nothing. It's not always something with residential tenants. Commercial tenants and businesses have to be given the same opportunity to work with their landlords. The biggest cost for a commercial endeavor is your rent and labor, and if you can't get any kind of concession from your business will suffer too, and you'll have to close your business. You lose all of that equity that you built up into it, and you lose your employees and all that intellectual capital that you built up into it. The costs for not working with your tenants the costs for not getting any kind of concession from your landlords are enormous and in many ways incalculable. Are you back, Fernando? Did you come back?
I'm back.
Okay,
I'm
I tried
back.
to keep talking.
Yes.
All right, brother.
Zach was saying that Fernando has a curse on him. I don't
Yeah,
know.
apparently.
I've changed modems. I've changed routers. I've changed everything. I don't know. I tried to go with somebody near.
That's all right, man. I tried to, Angelo gave, pretty good, when this happened to him, he just kept on talking. So he was my example that I tried to keep on.
To emulate. Yeah. From that night on, we decided to have always have an emergency topic. Mine is scuba diving in China. So whenever something goes by and I'm on, I'll just scuba diving in China. But that's not tonight. All right.
No.
Why don't we get round up to this topic, back to the idea of what we discussed during the planning part of this video, the idea of global warming. I mean, these floods, they're getting worse and worse and worse each year. As you said it yourself, this is the worst that they've had in 100 years. And
I think so, yeah.
It's not. It's not an act of magic. It's scientists are able to track the data and see this is what's going on. Storms are getting better, more hurricanes, more typhoons, more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, hurricanes, typhoons. Yeah, you're right what's going on, so I'm trying to repeat. And it looks like I lost the audio again. Okay. You're absolutely been talking about this for years and warning, and I continue to warn about it. Movie that he made people said it was crazy. But everything that's been happening is what he predicted. Now, our sea level rising so slowly, who knows? But here in Montana, I think you can attest to this. I live in Guam, I live in Shan, and this is a very low line part of China. And it's got rivers, waterways that go everywhere because it is the Delta region. And they said that this is one of the regions that will the seas will rise and flood all these cities and neighborhoods that surround the river delta. That's Shenzhen, Dongguan, Guangzhou, Foshan, Zhuhai, Zhongshan, Hong Kong, Huizhou, all of these places. And I see it every year. Every year, when it just gets a little bit of rain, there is a small little river that forms and separates the city of Zhongshan. So to go from the east side to the west side of Zhongshan is nearly impossible. You have to ford a river. And and it happened again this year, and it will happen again next year, and it will continue to happen. But if you notice, if you go to some of the older parts of Guangdong, some of the older parts of the cities, the architecture that they have here is prepared for this. This is the old ancient, not ancient, but 100-year, 200-year Ming Dynasty kind of architecture, and it's where the porticos come over the sidewalk, right?
Yeah.
And, you know what I'm talking about, right? Now these arches, right? So there's two reasons for that. One is sunshade, right? The other is for floodwaters, because it's a part of life here.
Yeah.
But it is getting worse.
It is getting worse all the time. How do you feel about Trump removing America from the Paris Agreement?
I think it's terrible. It's so stupid. This is something that is unprecedented in our presidencies. There might be a different administration that comes into power with different policies moving forward, but to reverse, treaties and policies so abruptly, these are world treaties and policies. It's not just that; it's also the TPP. It's also, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's also the Iran nuclear deal. All of these things that he has taken America out and retracted from, and pretty much left the rest of the world going, "Hey, what the hell?"
Yeah, what do we do now?
Yeah, this has never happened in our country, and it's always been understood that the next president will respect the laws that have been passed from the previous president, and they will either add to it, they will, tweak it in some way. I'm not talking about raising and lowering taxes. That's something completely different. That's, but as far as treaties go, this has never happened before, and I think that this switch and this retraction of America, this America first thing, and removing ourselves out of the world stage from a leadership position, has created this vacuum of leadership throughout the world, where America was one of the, not the, but one of the biggest members of, and now we're nowhere to be seen. And that vacuum
Um,
is being occupied by other nations now.
I think that China is one of those nations, and
China is
personally,
the nation. China is the nation,
I mean,
and that's
I
fine.
wake up
They've
every
actually
morning.
they've actually stepped up and said, "We'll do it. We'll do it." And I'm like, "Okay, great. At least someone's doing it."
Hmm. I wake up in the mornings, and I can't believe that this used to be the factory of the world. I mean, pollution was a real thing here
Mm.
20 years ago. I wake up in the morning, and you're probably seeing some of my widget pictures and the silly things that I'm like, it's just the blue skies. But
Mm.
I'm talking like European blue skies and white clouds. You know what I'm saying? Like, they have done
Your
an
car.
amazing job.
I mean,
Yeah.
your car is a perfect example of this. The electric car and the electric car revolution that's happening here. I mean, shoot, all the buses are electric, all the taxis are electric, everything
Yeah.
is moving to electric. The incentives, solar energy production. I mean, this is southern China. Northern China is a completely different monster, but they are moving faster towards the green energy and cleaning up the pollution than Western countries are, which are still fighting over whether or not we need to save coal mining jobs as opposed to, or producing nuclear power, or we can't produce wind farms because they look ugly on a hillside.
And they give you cancer.
Yeah. By the way, my father was in that industry, but he was part of the wind generation, the wind turbine farms in Palm Springs. He worked in that industry for a little while, and he
Mm,
lost out on many deals because the residents said that they were ugly.
just because they were ugly.
They were ugly.
Look,
And
I
actually,
think
when
I
you
think that
drive through that valley with all the white turbines, it's iconic, and it's actually quite beautiful as you drive through that valley.
yeah, I remember the
Mm.
first time that I saw like this kind of wind farms was in an, I don't know if you've been to the island. It's called Nan'ao, across from Shantou here in Guangdong. Have
No,
you been
no,
to
I haven't.
Shantou?
I've been to
It's a
Shantou, but
beautiful.
yeah.
Yeah, there used to be a ferry that you would drive onto and cross the little piece of sea that separates the island from the mainland. But now they
Mm.
built a beautiful bridge, so it's just a drive to this island, and
I know that bridge. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
it's full of small nooks and crooks and private, like, well, not private, just beaches. So you could
Yeah.
park by the roadside, walk down a little bit down the cliff, and get to a beach and nobody around. Like beautiful sandy beach. I love going to that place. It's about a like a 5 hour drive, more or less. And it's just unbelievable. And it's there that I saw for the first time these wind farms. And well, of course, they're out there in the island. That's how they get all their power. No, but I wanted to talk to you about the drive to push for electric vehicles, as you mentioned, taxis, buses, and cars. And the interesting thing that a lot of people talk when they talk about electric cars, they say like, oh, Chinese electric cars are kind of crappy, and I have to agree with them. A lot of the
Really?
Chinese, well, no, no, no. Let me explain. Let me elaborate my
Okay.
idea. Don't jump.
All right. Sorry. I'm sorry.
What I think is that they went for the higher consumption cars. So taxis, they don't need to be the most luxurious things. They're just batteries on wheels.
Hmm.
So they went for very simple designs, very simple models, very simple solutions that will rely on electricity. And that's what people bought for their DD business, which is like the Uber business, or taxis. And so they focus on the largest number of vehicles that we can come up with, so that it justifies the investment in all this network infrastructure of power and charging stations and all these things. Because if you do that for the 2000s a month neos that the neo is selling, it's not worth it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
okay, let's do it large scale first so that it justifies the investment in infrastructure, and little by little we start developing um, other brands and other luxury brands like Neo. Now they're coming. BYD is coming with nicer models as well. Was
Oh, we lost Fernando there. He's got an interesting point, and I never thought about that, but he's actually right. In America, we started with obviously Tesla, and then Nissan Leaf, I think, was another one, and there wasn't any infrastructure to support the Teslas, and they had to build it, and it was a very slow build. Where in China, you're right, they went big to begin with, and now it's trickling down to the consumer level as a so it's a really good point. Different
yeah.
strategy than what they did in America.
It's the opposite of what Tesla did. Tesla started with the Roadster, the expensive one, then they went to Model
Yeah.
X, Model S, all expensive to finance what is the most affordable one, if you call 500,000 RMB affordable, Model 3.
Which my mother has. My mother has a Model 3s, and
You've
she's
driven
a
it?
little. No, I haven't been able to go home. I can't go
Ah,
see
yeah.
my family. Well, my mother's the little old lady from Pasadena. Remember, my mother is an engineer herself, and so she looks at the Model 3 as a marvel of engineering, as opposed to
I did offer you to
just a
drive my
comfortable
car, but
car.
you said no, 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 no.
I was afraid I'd kill myself. That thing is powerful, man. I was having fun
So
just in the passenger seat, holding on for dear life. It's okay.
so it's really really interesting to see how they really reach deep into the pockets and put all this money to support this new venture, this new technology. And well, I don't know of any other country that has gone as fast and as far in this particular field. Um,
I think you're right. And there's something else to be said about that. I remember, and I've talked about this 20 years ago. You read that book, The World is Flat by Thomas Friedman, and it was about the rise of emerging economies, mostly China and India, and how they were kind of going to move together. And then China said, we're going to build the biggest this, we're going to build the largest this, and we're going to invest all this money. And the West said, it's never going to happen. You guys are too ambitious. And they did it. And they proved everybody wrong. And they continue to prove everybody wrong. Who knew? So maybe we should actually listen to them when they say we're going to do this, we're going to do that. Maybe we should actually listen to them, because the track record that they've had over the last 20 years is they've done it, and they
yeah,
continue to do it.
when I go back 20 years and I see some of the things that they had planned to do and they were trying to develop, and you're like, as I said in one of my latest videos, I'm like, why are you building these highways? Why? I mean, there's nothing out here.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's what Huawei campus is. I'm like, okay, they knew better.
Yeah, I saw that video. You're right. You're absolutely
They
right.
knew
I
better.
mean, they understand planning. The city planning in China, especially the new China, is phenomenal. It's world class. I mean, Shenzhen is the perfect example of
the interconnectivity.
City planning.
The interconnectivity is amazing. I mean, how you can go from one city to another, from one town to another. It's fantastic. Paul, I wanted to wrap up today's video. I mean, I think that this network is giving us a little bit of trouble, and a little bit unhappy about that. But I wanted to kind of like wrap up today's video by talking a little bit about your channel, your website, and Read the News with Rojo. Now that we have like 84 eyeballs on us, because at the beginning
really
there
that
were
many?
quite a
I don't
few.
see that. 84. Okay. Hi, everybody.
Yes, sir.
Welcome.
So tell us about Rojo Reads the News.
Well, Rojo Reads the News, as I said before, it's a daily news segment channel. I upload daily, every day at 10 p.m. Beijing time. And these are stories that interest me. They are mostly about China, but they're also about Asia in general. They're about America. They're about movies and ESL, but they're interesting stories, and not necessarily the stories that you see all over all the other channels. If you want to know about what's going on in Hong Kong, there's a million other channels you can watch to get opinion and see what's going on there. But what I'm more interested in is the news that you're not going to read in Western media sources. Mostly, some of these are Western media sources, but they are interesting takes. And then I give commentary based on my own experience and my own thoughts and my own life in general. And that's basically what it is. It's interesting. The response has been very good so far. I originally started this channel because my students wanted me to read current events news stories, and we have like a little English corner out of it. So I've actually used some of these clips in my classroom, believe it or not, and it's been very valuable. It's true, but it is very, very true, and that's what it is, and it's an open conversation, and it's I really want to show the world that China isn't everything that you see on CNN, Fox News, or even the Global Times and the Chinese news media. There's a lot more going on in this country that nobody ever hears about unless you're actually living here. And so I want to bring those small stories to all of you.
Cool. Guys, so Rojo reads the news. If you want to know more about the news that you don't get to hear, go to that channel and subscribe to Paul's new channel. I want to just finish by thanking every single person that has subscribed to my channel. I crossed the 10,000 barrier, Paul.
Congratulations. I can't believe it. I really can't. You've been killing, and it happened so quickly within you leapfrogged me like a month ago, and you've just skyrocketed. I mean, and you're continuing to go like crazy. So you're obviously saying something and conveying a message that is connecting with people, and that is a testament to the hard work that I know you put into this channel, your podcast, and your regular everyday job as a teacher. So bringing all of that experience and all of that life knowledge that you've accumulated to your audience is the value proposition that you give to them. And it's a model. It's something that I think a lot of YouTubers can learn from, including myself. So
I shifted into let me tell you what I know. Let me tell you what I know and how I see it, and it just took off. It just took off. So I'm very, very excited, and I'm really deeply appreciative of each and every one of you guys who has chosen to watch what I make for you guys. Paul, I want to thank you, man, so very, very much for joining me tonight. I hope that we can do this more often. It's a great
and
duel.
I have to plug one more thing. My regular vlog channel. I have to plug that. So I have my new channel, which is right here. You can see the logo. That's Rojo Reads the News. That's a daily news channel. It's small segments of news stories, and I hope you enjoy it. Yeah. So
and this is the original.
That's the original one. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So Walkabout Rojo is
Rojo.
yeah. So it's my life in China. It's Walkabout is the idea of discovery. It comes from the native people in Australia who wander into the woods in search of enlightenment and manhood. And I've taken that idea and kind of personalized it a little bit more as a lifelong journey of discovery. And so on that channel, you'll see me in all situations in China, the life that I live here as a teacher, as an explorer, as a traveler, and just a human being on the planet. So I hope that you can subscribe to both channels and support me in my endeavor as you support Fernando in his.
Sure. I mean, I'll tell you something, guys. Those of you who are watching, if there's a channel that really stands out for being different, is Paul's channel, Walkabout Rojo. It's different. It's a very different perspective. It's very, I don't know what it is. I don't know. It's just you. That's what I like about it.
It's just me, guys.
There's something about the way that you tell the stories and that you show us things that is very unique. So I highly recommend it. I don't know how many shout outs I've given you in the past. They're all worth it, by the way.
I appreciate it. Man. Yeah.
All right, Paul. Thank you so very much.
Yes.
Time to get a little bit of sleep before we restart our
wake up and do it all over again tomorrow, right? Yeah. You got it.
All right, guys. That's it for today. Thank you so much. Remember, if you like this channel, give it this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you like the content of this channel, subscribe to it. Until I see you again, take it easy. Bye for now. Bye, Paul.
Right,
Thanks.
Bye-bye.